may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now is your chance to, well, we've warned you.
Ow! What big eyes you have, the kind of eyes that drive most mad. So just to see that you don't get chased, I think I ought to walk with you for a ways. What full lips you have, they sure look someone bad. So until you get to Grandma's place, I think you ought to walk with me and be safe.
It is day 5 of Commentaries of the Night. Dylan, what day of Commentaries of the Night is it?
4.
4, okay. Fuck.
Fifth movie, fourth day.
That's the, okay, see, I wasn't totally wrong. I was just sort of wrong. Dylan McCandless, Super DM64, here to correct me on every point.
Hi, everybody. We're here to talk about another old monster.
Yes, that is the best way to describe it. Perhaps the most accurate in this instance, since the Mummy, well, that's the one we're talking about. There you go. The Mummy is the most ancient of all the classic Universal monsters, maybe except Gillman. I guess the Gillman would be the most ancient.
Well, his species would be, but I don't know how old he as an individual is.
That's true.
You know?
That's true. In that case, the Mummy still might be older. Dracula would be second.
Right. Well, assuming that Dracula is what we all, pretty much believe him to be in the current lexicon, which is, Vlad the Impaler turned into a vampire sometime in the 1500s. That wasn't really a trope yet, though, I don't think. So the Universal version of Dracula would be far older. Who knows? But I'm pretty sure that the Mummy still
he could have
probably
been a caveman with fangs, or without fangs, as we pointed out.
He could have been, but I doubt it. I'm sure the Mummy is probably older. Old dusty.
Yeah, he's very dusty looking. So the Mummy is the only one of these characters to have actually gotten a film this year that we're going to be discussing. And it's a very different take, obviously, on the character than this version, because this version is the iconic Imhotep mummy story.
Yeah, well, what really surprised me.
There is no specific book, I don't think, that this is based on. There is a mummy story that H.G. Wells wrote that this is the most inspired by. It's like the curse of whatever.
There is a book this movie's based on. It's called Dracula. It was written by a man.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, it's very well. It's based more on the fucking play that the fucking movie was. The movie was based on.
Yeah. Well, what really took me by surprise the first time I ever saw this film, because growing up I was first introduced. Well, I was always aware that Universal's The Mummy had been a thing, but I was first introduced to the Brendan Fraser version as far as actually seeing a Mummy movie. And what really surprised me when I finally got around to going back and watching the Karloff film is how much of a remake of this movie the Brendan Fraser movie actually is.
Yeah, the Brendan Fraser movie is actually pretty close to this.
Like the backstory and everything is pretty much lifted from this wholesale.
Which I like it a lot. That's why I think that version works so well.
Yeah, they lifted the same backstory and then just went into a more action-y direction rather than ripping off Dracula. So
good for them.
There are also the Universal Mummy sequels, which did not follow the same mummy, Imhotep. They follow a mummy named, I think, Karis, who's played by Lon Chaney Jr.
Which is a different archetypical type of mummy. You're more slave to an Egyptian villain type of mummy, or
right,
or a mummy who's acting on a curse more primally, more animalistically, like the mummy in the Hammer mummy movies, who's more animalistic in his approach to his mummy, because this mummy is more Dracula-esque in his approach. He comes out as a corpse and then he sort of rejuvenates himself and is able to walk in normal society and be a dickhead.
That's the other thing. That's the first time I saw this movie. He's only a mummy, so to speak, for like one scene, and then for the rest of the movie, he looks like a normal guy.
Which I think is why the makeup is so like drastically amazing, because it's only there for like 2 seconds.
They kind of turned that into a plot point, actually, in the Brendan Fraser mummy. He spent the entirety of that movie trying to become less decomposed in appearance.
He got there pretty like relatively quick though.
Yeah,
because they didn't want to have the CGI on screen for too long.
We should probably get into this though, because all this is fascinating commentary talk that we're wasting on the intro. So
that's true.
I assume that everybody has had time to boot up a version, and also they have pause buttons, so they can take as long as they damn well please. Listically.
Look at you fucking rushing this along. All right, so Dylan being like fucking Ivan Drago up in here, rushing us. See what I did there?
Everybody's rushing.
We're gonna be pressing play for The Mummy in 3, 2, 1, play. Bum! Oh no, it's not the Swan music, it's the Universal intro. The 30s one. Which one do you prefer? The 40s Universal intro or this one?
I think they're all
preference?
I think they're all special in their own
way.
Wait, is the 40s one that like weird one? Like all the
well, what do you mean by weird?
It's like, I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. I like the plain.
I'm glad. I really like the pyramid with the mummy font kind of sketched into it.
Yeah, that was cool.
Carter Freund, the cinematographer of Dracula.
Yes. I think he actually does a little bit of a better job here just because it's been a year and he has a better idea of how to do sound pictures.
Although, I should say this now, and you can give your piece on this as well while I go let my cat in. I do think this movie is one of my least favorite of all the original Universal movies.
See, that's interesting. I would think that you would at least like it a little bit more than Dracula. Because, yes, it's ripping Dracula off, but it's kind of refining a little bit of those elements in a way, you know?
It is more well-made than Dracula, but I don't think it has the charm of Dracula. I don't think it has the originality of Dracula, you know?
While we're watching these opening scenes, I'd like to go ahead and mention Jack Pierce, to my mind, the first like archetypical like great Hollywood makeup artist. And without him, you would have never gotten around to like your
John Chaney. Lon Chaney was his own, you know. So.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Before that, actors were just sort of doing their own stuff with whatever they could find. This guy was like this is the precursor to like your John Chamberses and your Stan Winstons and the kind of guys. And I think the reason I could have, you know.
Do you all like the sign I painted outside?
I could have mentioned him in the last commentary when we were watching Frankenstein, but I wanted to talk about him here because I think the mummy makeup, which unfortunately is only in this scene, may be his best.
Yeah, I think it's by virtue of how much more decomposed the mummy is than Frankenstein's monster, it is more impressive, you know? And because he really looks, you can see him back there, he looks like this decomposed, just, you know, like wrought to the bone corpse. Because Frankenstein's monster is this fresh, dead body. Like, that's what's so creepy about the Frankenstein monster. But it's certainly, that's easier to make already existing flesh appear that way. You know, this is...
They didn't have to cake Boris Karloff's entire body in layers and layers.
No, yeah, this his forehead and specific parts, but this is so much more drastic. Look at the face, but that's the benefit of it. The detail in the face that's retained is incredible. And the fact that he's able to sit still like that, like these actors are amazing. You know, like in their discipline. Like it just doesn't exist anymore. People don't have to do this anymore, you know? The demanding nature of film at this time just produced these preternaturally capable performers.
Definitely. Here we have Edward Van Sloan playing Van Helsing for the third time now.
Yes, he's Egyptian philosopher Van Helsing, right? I don't think he's necessary here. Very unmemorable. This whole movie is very unmemorable to me. It's not one that I go back to very often. I've seen it like twice. I like the Hammer one better. Right, the Hammer mummy is my mummy.
What he's basically explaining now is there's on the inside of the coffin, and if I remember correctly, he warns them not to open a thing, and then they open the thing anyway, and then the mummy wakes up.
Yeah, well, this guy on the left is the one who fucks up. I remember that very clearly.
Yeah, I'm surprised he's not Dwight Fry. You'd think they put Fry in that role.
He looks very Dwight Fry. He's blonde Dwight Fry, isn't he?
Yeah, I wonder why they couldn't get Dwight Fry. I don't think there's any more Dwight Fry for the rest of these commentaries, are there? Or is there, I should say.
Bride of Frankenstein. He plays like the same role that he did in the original Frankenstein.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot he was in there.
And then that might be it. We'll see. I could be wrong. Hey guys, what do you think the code is on this ancient Egyptian suitcase? Do you think it's 1, 2, 3, 4?
I'm no expert in hieroglyphics, so I'm not an expert Egyptologist. However, I am an amateur Egyptologist.
Right.
And, I believe the inscription there said something to the effect of "Property of Imhotep. Please do not open."
I think that's ancient Egyptian dick butt right there. Somebody drew that in luggage. One of Imhotep's enemies.
I love this guy. The other guy just got done reading a curse and saying, "Good heavens, what a terrible curse." And he says, "Well, let's see what's inside." Meanwhile, Edward Van Sloan's like, "Look, you guys, I've already fought a vampire and a reanimated corpse. I ain't in on this."
He unsuccessfully fought the reanimated corpse. He more like fondled the reanimated corpse, and then the reanimated corpse killed him.
It's true. It's true. I'm 1-1. I don't have the best record here. Let's not open the chest.
Let me go get some fire so we can burn all this to the ground.
They won't open the chest, fine, but I'm going to leave the room first.
Let me go pick up some weed first. That way I can deal with it. Oh, look, they're having a little private romantic talk on the dunes. Van Sloan is promising a better life for him, If you come back with me, I will be able to make your life so much better.
Well, Edward Van Sloan wasn't able to bring his office, so this is the closest.
I understood that reference.
This other guy kind of looks like an older 1930s version of circa Horror of Dracula, Michael Gough. You know what I mean?
This guy or the other guy?
The other guy, the one that Edward Van Sloan was just talking.
I can see that.
It's weird.
He's very stereotypically old British dude. This guy is definitely, like you said, definitely your Dwight Fry type. This ancient Egyptian box definitely is a little weird that it has, like, metal hinges on it. Like, that's a little odd. It looks kind of like a wooden box that I would get from, like, an antique store.
Now solve the puzzle box and unleash the spirit of Yami.
This is a little bit like the original Yu-Gi-Oh, isn't it? I wonder if he's going to challenge somebody to a shadow game.
I hope so.
Or a death game, as they're known.
I really hope this movie turns into Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, why not? They're both bastardizations of an ancient culture. Oh no,
the Ark of the Covenant is just dust. Oh my god, what a fuck up.
Don't look at it, Marion. It's good to see that in 1930, the horror trope of, hey, don't do the thing, I'm going to do the thing anyway, is already firmly established.
People being idiots, you mean, yes. It's a beautiful, consistent trend. Let me just manhandle these ancient artifacts.
Now Boris Karloff's legs are bound together, so really we imagine that the mummy sort of shuffling walks out, but
He would
in
more have to
practical-
hop.
It would have to be more of a bunny hop in practicality, wouldn't it?
You just imagine, like, here comes Peter Cottontail, hopping down the bunny trail.
I'm pretty sure that's actually how mummy's legs were bound, so, we have this image in pop culture of the mummy walking, but in reality, if a mummy were to come back to life, it would be hopping around.
Right. I mean, realistically, if they came back to life, they would be sitting in their tomb, dying for somebody to let them out. Get it? Dying. Do you find mummies scary?
Not particularly, no.
No, they're not very frightening. Because you never think that a mummy is gonna, like, come in your room, you know, unless the mummy unless you sleep in like an Egyptian tomb. That's a very creepy shot. Like, man, oh my god, look at the makeup on that. That's amazing. But unless you're sleeping in them right now, the mummy is not really a problem for you.
Yeah.
I do think, like, aesthetically, it is very creepy. The idea of a corpse just kind of wandering out of a tomb. But the other thing is, like, the mummy isn't, like, gonna eat you, you know? He's probably not even gonna kill you. He doesn't really care about you. He's just like... Well, I guess unless the curse makes him go after you. Like, does he kill this guy?
Yeah, because I think that... No, he doesn't kill him. The guy sees him and basically goes insane. Again, very Dwight Fry. I don't think that the frightening thing about the mummy has ever actually been the mummy itself. It's more so the idea of, like, the curse that goes along with the mummy.
Right.
Like... Because, the whole reason, like, mummies became an object of American horror culture, it all goes back to the 20s when they found King Tut's tomb, and a lot of the people who were connected to that excavation, like, died in weird ways, and so there was all this talk that, like, the tomb of King Tut was cursed, and it created this sort of idea in the public consciousness.
That's why they made this movie, right? Because of the hysteria around that?
Pretty much. If I remember correctly, I think one of the guys who was, like, a writer or something on this movie was working for the press when the King Tut thing was found or something.
Yeah, there was an original expose about the curse of King Tut's tomb that inspired this film, if I remember the documentary about this on the DVD correctly. But there is a mummy book that was written by a female writer, and there was another one by H.G. Wells that they're kind of stealing inspiration from and mixing it with Dracula. But we do need, like, a proper mummy novel, don't we?
The Great American...
Yeah, I feel like that's really lacking in this world. There have probably been several different attempts. There was one that I read when I was a kid. It was for school, actually. It was called, like, The Tomb of Anubis or whatever. And the idea of it was that this girl's step-parents had, like... They were, like, crazy Egyptologists, and they brought, like, the sarcophagus of Anubis back to the States, back to their house, and it's, like, trying to kill her.
That's what we got to do, Bill. We gotta write the Great American Mummy novel,
Yeah. That will be,
coming... I Want My Mummy, coming soon to a Barnes & Noble near you.
Mummy Knows Best, the sequel.
Are You My Mummy, the epic conclusion.
A mummy story set in the 1940s. A blitzed out, and only one mummy can save it.
Only one mummy can save it. Why not? They have the power to, like, destroy the world in all the newer mummy movies. So
yeah, well, have you seen the Tom Cruise Mummy?
No.
I saw most of it. It's not awful. It's the most bland thing I've ever seen bits and pieces of. You know?
So it's not as good as it, is what you're saying.
What?
I said, so it's not as good as it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and by it he means It, the clown movie from 2017. No, certainly not.
I always forget how tall Boris Karloff is. And there's something about his wardrobe in this movie, that long gown, that really accentuates his height. You know,
It makes him look
like
old. It makes him look 10 times older than he is too. And the subtler makeup on his face here is really good as well.
because he's also really slim. So I shot a few seconds ago when they opened the door and you just see him. It's like he looks like one of those wacky inflatable tube men with the arms. You know, he's just like a big long. He just keeps going.
Mm.
It's a very imposing figure, actually, especially when imbued with his sort of weird, lispy creepiness.
I don't know. I really like this idea of a mummy interacting in the modern world. You know, pretending to be a normal guy, and he has to kind of overcome weaknesses of being a mummy in the modern world. You know, he might look like a normal enough guy, but he's still a mummy.
I also like that he has to recruit people to help him dig up the shit that he wants because he's not allowed to dig up his own ancient dead Egyptian. It's a nice conceit to bring
Interesting.
to bring along these white people.
Yeah, because you have to remind yourself that he's not white. This is generic, you know, white Universal monster movie lead 101.
Brownish face. Not even brown face because they're not trying that hard. Brownish face.
Yeah, God knows what these poor people's ethnicity is. They all look maybe Mexican.
Although, I don't know, depending on what period of ancient Egypt he's from, there might have been some, you know, Greek genetics floating around, you know?
Right.
It's not completely
I mean,
inconceivable.
no, but his name is Imhotep. He was in the hose Tep, you know?
I mean, Cleopatra had a baby Caesar. Anything can happen.
You saying that's who Imhotep is?
No, I'm just saying.
I love how Imhotep is like, I'm gonna hire you because we need you. I need somebody who's not Egyptian to dig up the dead. But
I'm saying some Greek guy gets kicked out of Greece. He's like, "Fuck it, I'm going to the Orient." He can't even find the Orient because he's fucking stupid. But he winds up in Egypt, and he
hang on.
found
So,
chick.
the reason why Imhotep hired these motherfuckers is because Egyptians can't dig up their own dead. But they're not even doing the digging. The Egyptians that they're hiring are doing the digging.
It makes me wonder if Imhotep can't dig up the dead because he's a mummy, and maybe there's some kind of like curse thing involved.
I imagine he's just fucking feeble. He can't do it physically. He's a rich fucking entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's another thing. Where did he amass his fortunes?
And his name, I believe, is Artem Bey.
Ardeth
He probably
Bey, yeah.
stole stuff from his tomb and then sold it.
Oh yes, the Cairo Museum. We all know the Cairo Museum.
Look at all these Egyptians wondering at their history.
There's one way to write a mummy novel. You basically just rip off the relic, but it makes more sense because you're just bringing a mummy to a museum.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll tell you, the Pendergast series did a sort of mummy thing. I mean, they did a very strange spin on it, but they did like an Egyptian curse story. But it wasn't like real. It was all an illusion conceived by another character. The Book of the Dead, it was called. If anybody's interested. Look at him, just staring at that corpse of his.
He's like, we are so going to bone. Phenomenon.
That was actually a really good cut. I got the idea there.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you, man. Carl Freund really learned from his limitations on Dracula and managed to make this far more interesting, just on the visual level, you know.
Do you see all the sand out there? That is my office. Would you like to come back with me there?
I hate sad. It's coarse and rough and irritating. It gets everywhere.
She's kind of unconventionally attractive. That's what I like about her. And she had a lot of weird stories that on the DVD special features. She was kind of extra, if you know what I'm saying.
Right, yeah. Well, if I remember the stories correctly, she was actually kind of into like occult stuff.
Right. She tried to levitate herself at one point. It was said that she actually succeeded, which I don't know if I believe, but sure, why not? I wasn't there.
You know what she has over some of the other leading ladies from these movies? She's kind of like dark and mysterious, you know?
She actually has like an interesting, unique look. She doesn't look like a generic damsel in distress maiden from one of these movies. Listen, my friend, fezzes are cool.
Do you see my hat? You do not fuck with this kind of a hat.
He just takes his fucking fez off and shoots it with a gun.
I am literally the oldest man you have ever seen.
His eyes are also he does that Frankenstein thing where his eyes like have this glazed over look because he's a dead guy. I like that a lot.
Did they beef up his eyebrows in this movie, or are those nasty?
They took some caterpillars and they
they killed the caterpillars in the most painful way you could imagine, and then stapled them on.
They stapled them to his head. Yeah.
I must bid you good day.
How do you put something like that on? Do you just like put it over your head and just like slip it on like a dress?
I guess I've never worn a gown, so I can't. Well, I guess graduation gown, but that had on the front. So.
Yeah. That had a zipper. That does not look like it. Doesn't look like the mummy would know or be able to do a zipper because nobody would ever help him with it. You know, he would never trust anybody to see him without the gown, so he could never have somebody zip it up. He's got to put it on himself. That's my point.
I don't even know if there are zippers in 1932. Are there?
I don't fucking know.
I don't think so. I mean, it seems to all be buttons.
Oh, he's getting so high right now. In this museum.
Out of all these movies,
this is very The Relic all of a sudden.
Right? Out of all these movies that we've watched, this one is the most like clear about the time period it's taking place in, because it's all about this like wave of Egyptology that was going on at the time in the real world. So it doesn't have that like Neverland quality that we were talking about with the other films, where you're not quite sure. It's like, is this the 30s or the 1800s or some sort of weird mixture?
We're in a faraway place already. We're in Egypt.
Yeah, so. This one is clearly supposed to take place in the contemporary, well, what was the contemporary world at the time.
But in Egypt, so we've already got that exotic locale without being like, it might be the 1800s in Europe.
I'd like to know how Boris Karloff became like a leading man in Hollywood without anybody addressing the fact that he has that lisp. You know what I mean?
Frankenstein was his big startup role. I mean, he was in stuff before that, but Frankenstein was the thing that got him famous, and he doesn't speak in that.
That's true, yeah.
So when he started acting and stuff after that, he didn't really have a lisp. Or if he did, it was just part of his performance.
I think he managed to tone it down, like whenever Frankenstein started talking, probably because it was like very primitive dialogue. But like he doesn't
talk at all in the original.
You can hear it more in this movie where he has like a lot of dialogue and like, you know, like he's sitting there going, "Aksunamun, come to me, Aksunamma," you know.
Right. Well, he's supposed to be dead. Again, I think he's supposed to sound like he's struggling to speak. Like, I think we're supposed to get the idea that like this life is not fun. This like life after death type of deal.
One weird thing they did in the Brendan Fraser version is they kind of changed her name a little. Instead of Ankh-Namun.
It's a Nox-in-a-Moon.
A Nox-in-a-Moon. I'm like, why did you add like 5 more syllables to that already?
They had to have the mummy dude say it in that really dramatic way. A Nox-in-a-Moon.
Because Ankhsenamun is already fine. It's already vaguely foreign sounding. You don't need to add all this extra like to it, you know.
Yeah, you don't need all of that.
Extra syllables and the vowels and the phlegm. It's not
And
necessary.
the lady, it's not necessary at all.
And the pudding pop.
CD, we put on Dracula again. Why did we put on Dracula again?
Why does any of this feel comfortable in these movies? Like, look at that couch.
No, it looks like maybe an inch of mattress on mostly metal and wood. It looks like she's just kind of sitting on a bench as opposed to a couch.
Like, oh, we can't afford cushions. There's a war on.
There wasn't a war on at this point, though. That's the thought. That's the problem.
There will be a war on. We're prepared.
There was a depression on at this point.
Oh yeah, that's afford cushions. There's a depression on, and then we got to have a war. We won't have any money for the war because we're still depressed. It's a vicious cycle.
I gotta start taking my uppers again, so that way I won't be so depressed. In order to, so I can have cushions on my couch.
Is he actually killing a guy now? This is the first actual death in this movie?
Yeah, he showed him what was under his gown.
No, there is one questionable element.
This is a little questionable right now. This is the first ethnic-looking fellow we've seen. All he's doing is letting people into doors.
Well, I mean, you know, he's obviously been hired to perform a butlery type role, whatever.
A butlery type role.
What's questionable is later on when Boris Karloff is like, oh, he's a Nubian, and then like starts mind controlling him because he's an Egyptian, and so he's got some sort of magical power over the black people. It's
Oh,
like,
boy.
boy.
Even though he himself is white as the day is long.
So 24 hours white.
Yeah, look at how hard the cushion is, too. Like, it doesn't look soft at all. Some people prefer that, though. Do you prefer a firm mattress or a soft mattress?
I mean, I guess it's supposed to improve your posture, and it's probably better for your frame and everything, but I require comfort.
But don't you like a nice middle ground? I like a nice middle ground. I don't want to sink into it like a fucking marshmallow or a beanbag chair. I want it to resist me a little bit, but I also want to kind of go, I want to sink in a little bit.
I don't want to drown in my own mattress, sure, but like firm is going a little too far, you know.
Yeah.
Sturdy, probably.
You don't want to bounce. You don't want to jump onto it and then bounce up against it and then like shoot up onto the ceiling.
Remember when waterbeds were a thing?
Yeah, that was like the early 90s.
You ever sit on a waterbed?
Yeah, it's not pleasant. It feels like sitting on Jell-O.
Kind of fun at first, but then you're like, why would you sleep on
Yeah,
this?
you would never want to sleep on it though.
Like I could imagine like
I've
having
fallen
like
asleep. It's interesting. I've fallen asleep on like pool toys though.
I could imagine having like a water couch or a water chair or something to like play video games in, but not a waterbed.
A beanbag is amazing. I've fallen asleep in a beanbag chair. I slept on a beanbag bed once.
That's got to come back around at some point. Waterbeds are going to come back, you know. Everything does.
I'm just thinking about buying all beanbag based furniture for my room because it's easily transportable. You just throw it around, you know.
The problem with beanbag stuff is that sometimes it can lose its shape, and it's very hard to try and get it back into that shape. You know,
Right.
like if it's just basic beanbag, sure. But if it's like one of those bean bags that are like made to actually look like a chair,
Why are we talking about this?
it can get all fucked up. I don't know, because we're watching Sandy Dracula right now, and there's nothing.
Oh, I wish these had titles like DFOS, because if so, that would definitely be the title of this one. Sandy Dracula. I'm just imagining Dracula in like a Hawaiian shirt and sandals and socks.
They even have a cross in this movie. They replaced the cross with like a little like, I think, isn't it Bas, the Egyptian cat goddess that they use?
We'll
Like, as like a charm against Imhotep.
I love those
Basically the
old-fashioned phones.
But that's a horizontal one. I prefer the vertical ones, you know.
See, I want one of those really old-timey ones where you have to turn it and you pick up like a little receiver. That's
I've
what
always
I
been
want.
I've always been fond of the rotary phone, you know.
Yeah, me too. I'm talking about an even older version of that though, where you have to like wind it up and then connect to an operator who will then connect you to a certain person.
Let's bring that back. Everybody throw away your cell phones. We're going back to...
If I get like a landline, it's gonna be like an old-timey landline because I have a cell phone already. I'm not really realistic. I don't even want a landline. I don't want people calling me.
No, the only reason I would get a landline is if I need it for the internet, you know.
Yeah, which is usually not a thing anymore. You usually can get a Wi-Fi deal that doesn't require a landline. I find it disturbing how much of this movie has taken place on this couch.
This is either going to turn into a love scene or a rape scene. Let's find out together.
As we always do in these situations.
Or maybe a little bit of both, as in a Bond movie.
This is definitely a lot more, like, sexually open than Dracula. I think the documentary talked a lot about how the actress was more kind of seductive and a little more open with her sexuality and comfortable with herself than your more kind of puritanical Dracula, you know?
She was like some freaky chick who was into the occult. In the 30s, that wouldn't even become popular until like another 40 years from now.
Right.
Like,
I think that's why she's so appealing as well. She's got that kind of darker streak in her. She's rebellious. Gentlemen, we have now entered my real office. Take off your pants.
that's why this gentleman is so, disturbed right now.
The Mummy version of Jonathan Harker is, I would say, a little better than Jonathan Harker in Dracula. He's been a little more, at least he's involved in the main story. He helped dig up a Noxinamun. Yeah, there you go. That's your bit right there. It looked like he was about to fight him.
I thought
You want to step up?
I thought you would all be extinct by now.
I think the thing about him that's the funniest is that he has a headband on. He looks like a hippie. Yeah, mummies, man. I think I think I may have said this already, but I think this is maybe better paced than Dracula.
They're hypnotic like a vampire, but only if you're black. Or a version of a previous mummy.
That's why the Mummy would do so badly in London.
No blacks or well, maybe today. No blacks or reincarnated mummies from the past.
Do great in Manhattan, though.
All of that.
The Mummy takes Manhattan. The
Hope
Mummy,
it turns
the Mummy has a Manhattan.
Hope it turns out better than when Jason's Manhattan. Which is an interesting case because only 20% of that movie actually took place in quote-unquote Manhattan. Most of it on a boat.
I can't tell if she's looking at his horrible, ugly face or his horrible, ugly fez.
You just think last night.
Apparently she and Carl Freund did not get along, though. That's the one thing I remember from the documentary.
I need to show you something in cinema. It is called a penis.
Do you remember that being mentioned as well, though, that she and the director did not get along? Like, apparently she got really sick at one point, and he was, like, forcing her to keep going.
Yeah, I believe I remember something about that. Carl Freund went on to work on more of these movies. I don't know if she ever did.
Do you think that this movie has more personality than Dracula?
It might. Like I said, I feel like it takes the basic plot of Dracula, and on the one hand, you can look at it and say, oh, it's a ripoff of Dracula. Yeah, but it's also kind of a refinement in many aspects, you know?
Yes.
Interesting that now Boris Karloff is taking a hand at out-Draculaing Bela Lugosi.
I think if the Mummy had more to him... Because I just don't think that the Mummy himself is as cool as Dracula, you know?
Right.
And the idea of it is just not as concrete. So I think that's what ultimately makes Dracula stand out better.
Not until the 90s when the Mummy got, like, sand powers.
Right. Which the way they do that in the new one is actually pretty cool. I like the confidence of this, too. Like, he's just like, I'm just gonna fucking show you guys that this is my girl. Right in front of y'all's faces.
Like how nobody questions the fact that he came into their house, just like... he just waltzed in.
Hand was open. He's just...
Also notice how neither Edward Van Sloan or a guy who let Michael Goff, neither of them are ever like, hey, he looks kind of familiar.
They wouldn't recognize him.
I mean, he's got the same facial structure.
Yeah, but you would interpret that as just like going crazy. There's no way you would look at what he looks like now and see the face of the Mummy. Unless they had any indication to believe otherwise that that's who he was, and then they might figure it out. Then I could see it, but I see that.
I believe Edward Van Sloan is already onto him, but the rest of them, maybe not as much.
I imagine walking in and seeing him in this fucking creepy situation with this girl is already, bad enough to indicate that, but...
If only Russell Crowe were here to explain his motivations.
And to tell us what kind of world we're in.
And to start setting up that shared universe. Even though we're like, I don't know, 7 or 8 films out from anyone ever crossing over, actually, in this universe. Looks like a bunch of
Ancient
drawings.
Egyptian dick butt, I see. You are a man of class, Edward Van Sloan. There's a fire extinguisher in the background, you see that?
I'm afraid I cannot read ancient Egyptian. It's all Greek to me.
I'm illiterate.
So I have... Yep, see?
Oh.
Sloan knows what's on.
Yeah, but he's gonna be like, oh, doesn't this kind of look like you? He's like, you're fucking crazy. That's a decomposing corpse.
This is totally this movie's version of the mirror from Dracula.
Yeah, almost identically. He literally just dangled it in front of him the same way. I'm gonna mummy all over you, I swear to God.
Interesting, because this isn't like later mummy movies where a mummy is essentially just a really old zombie. He's more like a wizard.
Well, he's a priest in this version. He's good with black magic and all that. That's the approach
black
they take
people.
with the new one as well. You know, she's like this master of dark magic, and that's why she's so dangerous.
Yeah, well, that's how the Brendan Fraser movies did as well. But they would also have like the more stereotypical mummies as like henchmen or whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
the new one does that too. I feel like if he had that in this, I would like this movie more. Because as it stands, I just feel like it gets progressively more generic as it goes. It's in no way bad, though. I just don't think it stands out enough.
I think the best part in the movie is when he takes Anakthanamun back to his like lair and like shows her the backstory of what happened and why he's after her.
I don't even remember that part, so... Vaguely.
Yeah, he uses this.
Oh,
this,
yeah, he looks into... Oh, yeah, he's got like a little TV.
I also like that he has a cat just around in his lair, you know, because Egyptians worshipped cats. That's cool. It's a nice little thing. Be better if it was an Egyptian cat, one of those like white Blofeld cats, but whatever.
He should have a crocodile as a pet as well.
Well, if it were up to you, everyone would have a crocodile as a pet.
That's true.
There'd be a lot more related murders, but
Oh, my palpitations! I had too many McDoubles this week. 1930s McDonald's was killer. Just raw fat on a bun.
I apologize, Lord Vader. I totally have faith in the dark side of the Force.
He is a little like the Emperor or Darth Vader, or just any kind of lord in his abilities. You know?
It took a lot out of him.
Yeah, he doesn't have like unlimited energy reserves. That's what I like. He's limited by the fact that he is just a man who has cheated death. It's good that they keep that box of matches right there on the floor.
I think the other guy dropped it when he started having his heart attack. That's a good plan that Boris Karloff had there. That's something that I don't think has like a direct parallel in Dracula. You know, this whole idea of him like faking the scroll's destruction in order to get his hands on it. I don't think there's anything quite like that in Dracula, so that's a new element.
No, that would be like if he destroyed that he bought, but was still living in it.
Which he didn't have to do because the house was pretty much already destroyed when he bought it.
Well, he was still an idiot because he just went back to his house and they just went in and murdered him, like they knew they could do. Imhotep is definitely smarter than Dracula.
It's like that really cringy moment in The Cat in the Hat when the kid says, "You ruined our mom's dress," and then Mike Myers goes, "Honey, it was ruined when she bought it." He does the snapping thing. That entire movie is just one long cringe.
Yeah, I mean, it's the way he looks in that makeup is unsettling in the wrong way. Edward Van Sloan seems to get younger as these movies go. Like, he looked ancient in Dracula. Then he looked a little better in Frankenstein, and now he looks like fucking young and prime and ready to go in this movie. He is just inviting everybody into his office.
Like I said in the Frankenstein commentary, I really think those glasses did a number on how old he looked in Dracula. And I don't know, maybe he's a, what's it called?
Maybe he's a Benjamin Button.
No, an incubus, which is a type of folkloric demon who feeds on sex. So every time he invites somebody into his office, he revitalizes himself.
Hey, that's the way to live, man. I wish I was a fucking incubus.
basically just the male equivalent to a succubus. You're aware of a succubus, I assume.
I knew what an incubus was.
Okay. I didn't know if I needed to explain that or not.
You did not.
So I did anyway, just to be
Bitch.
safe. More for the people at home, really.
You know what? They didn't want your bullshit either. No.
Well, fuck them.
They're literally listening to you talk over a movie that's almost 100 years old, and it's a movie that you didn't make, you've got no real bearing on. It's a movie that you've seen a few times. So, that's all I'm saying.
Well, when you say it like that, this whole thing seems ridiculous.
I just want to point that out just so you're aware. Oh boy, that's the shot right there, isn't it?
There's definitely still something going on here.
Yeah, no,
It's just
like I said earlier, I like the subtlety of it.
That's why I chose this movie to like step aside and be like, hey, by the way, Jack Pierce, really cool. Good job, man.
I'm glad you were alive.
And later on, the Barrymores took over. No, not Barrymore. What's the fucking...
Yeah, like
Westmore.
Drew Barrymore ruined the entire Hollywood makeup industry. Yeah, Bud Westmore is the one who did your Abbott and Costello era monster makeup, your rubber masks and everything.
I confused the family that's been acting forever with the family that's been doing makeup forever.
She literally just lets the leash go.
Remove that jackal in my presence.
I definitely don't need that anymore. Welcome to my crib.
This is a nice pad.
It literally looks like a pet. Like, is that his bed? Like, he sleeps around the water? That's awesome.
Sit down and let me show you the past. Which, yes, involves my penis.
Let me show you my demonic Egyptian god. Whatever the hell the equivalent of a serpent god is in Egypt. That's what I'm going to show you.
A popus?
Sure, that. He's
Allow
got
me
it
to show
hiding.
you.
He's got it hiding under his robes and his fez.
Allow me to show you my opopus. Standing ready to swallow your son.
We are going to get so lit, my dear.
Smoke on the water.
It's a great jacuzzi.
This is the
Should
part
get
where
me one of those.
this is the part where Velma comes in and says, "It was dry ice." You remember that episode of Scooby-Doo?
That was every episode of Scooby-Doo.
I remember that very well.
They're shaking their heads because they don't white people in the entire city.
It was ancient Egypt, my dear. Everyone was white for some reason.
It was just them. Everybody else was of the proper skin color, at the very least.
Except for the slaves.
Oh, there's another white guy. Oh, look at his little cheetah-like cape. Why doesn't he have that on in the present day? That's a stylish piece of wardrobe right there.
I'm sure it's long gone.
That decomposed quickly, like even more quickly than he did.
Well, I mean, he wasn't wearing any of that shit when he got mummified anyway. That stuff probably got auctioned off.
I would have asked to be mummified in that.
Or maybe, I don't think he had much of a choice, or maybe maybe that's like his uniform for his office. So like whoever took over his job after he died got it, you know?
Mm.
Why is he carrying a large-ass flower, though?
He's planning on giving it to his secret admirer.
Everyone out. I must remove my chin strap in peace.
Oh god, they have like ancient safes. Cool.
That is when I read your diary.
I have laundered all of the money from the car wash.
Bitch. That's what we need. We need Egyptian Jesse Pinkman to...
Yeah, I feel like he should have a little sidekick that he can tell all his plans to, you know? He really does need, like, a Dwight Fry. I feel like that's missing. Now, this is the story all about how my life got turned upside down. Now, I'd like to take a moment, just sit right there, and tell you how the mummy of a town called Bel Air.
I was able to remember Klaatu and Barata, but I messed up Nikto.
Let's be real, Emotep. You one dumb motherfucker. Get out of my sight.
Why does he have an armband on one arm and a wristband on the other?
Because he's not limited by your judgments of him, Dylan. He's going to live his life the way he sees fit.
See, look, that guy took over his job. Now he's wearing the cheetah skin.
Oh, fuck me. Does he have a flower?
I didn't see a flower. I feel like that was like a flower for the grave, probably, when he was at that chick's funeral. That's probably what the idea was.
He had taken her to his office.
The scene of him being mummified alive is pretty drastic stuff for 1932.
I mean, this is still pre-code.
I mean, like, it's like one of the few things in this movie that's like disturbing even by like today's standards. Like, you wouldn't want that, you know?
They do this in every version. Usually it's at the beginning, though. This is always usually the same, though. Except throw bugs in.
We did not yet have access to CG scarabs.
But the idea is, you know, they mummify him alive, so that way he'll be forced to suffer all of eternity sitting in a sarcophagus, thinking about all the things he fucked up.
Why carve that elaborate sarcophagus if you're just going to scrape off all the identifying marks?
I don't think they made it for him. Or if they did, it was at a time that he was still, like, you know, they still liked him.
Probably. The Egyptian religion was very obsessed with death, so I'm pretty sure they would put that shit way ahead in advance. I made my funeral arrangements when I was 2 years old.
They found the Well of the Souls.
Throw it back to God.
I like to watch this channel a lot. It reminds me of the old days. Oh shit, that's very brutal for 1932.
Look at the guy's face, though. Like, he fell to the ground, but the look on his face was like, this is a mild inconvenience.
Yeah, well, I don't think he really realized what happened until it was late.
It's only a flesh wound. She's got a really stylish get-up on here, you know? Kind of a...
She dressed herself for success in this situation.
Feels like something Jackie Kennedy would have worn, but like 30 years previous, you know?
I'll tell you this much. She's way out of his league. I'll put it that way. He's lucky she's chilling with him.
Lucky that her previous incarnation fell in love with him in ancient Egypt.
Right.
Now, what's interesting about this is that this is probably the biggest change from Dracula, is this idea of the reincarnated love. But it's an idea that would later get reused in Dracula in the 90s.
I think that's why we remember this as being so similar to Dracula, because that idea is in other versions of Dracula that came later, so we forget that this actually started that.
Well, I mean, the rest of the plot of this movie is pretty much the plot of the 31 movie, but it also makes this really interesting change which Dracula stole later on.
Right. It's hilarious. I like that a lot, though. I think that's, again, one of the better things to distinguish it.
Yeah. And other people have borrowed it as well. There's also an element of that in the 1985 original version of Fright Night. I don't know about the remake, but there's a thing where like, oh, the main character's girlfriend happens to look like this vampire character's previous girlfriend from who knows how.
That's in the remake as well.
Hmm.
Look at all the buttons on the side of her dress. Those are way too many buttons.
At a certain point, it ceases to be function and becomes style. You know?
Yeah, it's like one of them comes off. Oh, great, I have 9 more. They wanted to make these clothes back then as difficult as possible to take off, so you would never do it. Every article of clothing was basically its own chastity belt.
So you really had to want it, is the point here. You really had to put in the time.
I had to take off all 11 buttons.
Oh, discount Jack Harkness. How will we ever stop Merrick from blanketing in darkness?
Discount Jack Harkness. You're hilarious.
Did I say Jack Harkness?
You did.
I meant to say...
I know, you meant to say Jonathan Harker. But the fact that you said Jack Harkness is so much cooler. I wish this guy was discount Jack Harkness. I mean, if anything, he would be closer to Jack Harkness, you know, because he can't die, but...
True.
Although I think he does die at the end. I'm pretty sure they kill him.
I think that these horror sequels back in the day don't need to, like, resurrect characters over and over again. If they killed the monster in the first movie, they'll just say, okay, we'll just use a different... Like, the sequels to Dracula, it's always...
One of his...
Dracula's got a sibling, or a child that
well,
we didn't know about.
In one of them, it turned out to just be him under a fake name, that he was lying about being his own son.
See, that's your interpretation, but I don't think so.
What? Yeah, but like they say that in the movie.
Well, yeah, but Dracula is a last name, so of course his name would be Dracula. I never took that to mean he's the actual same guy.
I think the idea is that he's like living on, saying that he's his own son. You know? Whatever, it doesn't matter. We're not watching that movie.
But then in the sequels for The Mummy,
they use a different mummy. Yeah, I mean the Wolfman is the only one where it was always the same Wolfman, except the Werewolf of London, obviously, because that was first.
Then later on, they actually resurrected Dracula, but that took a long time.
And then it wasn't even Bela Lugosi for a long time still. I think like the biggest hindrance this has being so based on Dracula is that we're stuck in the house the whole fucking, you know? I miss being in the Egyptian tomb.
Yeah.
Go outside!
Especially since later Mummy movies, many of them just are like people in an Egyptian tomb running away from a mummy.
Well, like, also, the modern Mummy movies are all like these big explosion-filled action movies. But, you know, I'm not criticizing this for not having explosions and action in it. I just want them to go outside. That's it. Is that so wrong?
You just want them to go outside.
That's it.
They sound like my mother.
Well, your mother sounds like a very rational woman.
Yeah. Go outside, Dylan, have a life. And I'm like, Dragon Ball Z's on.
Mom's on. The mummy doesn't have a life. He has a life after death, Mom. That's what I'm gonna have, Mom. I'm gonna be resurrected by a dumb fuck who opens a box.
But I gotta die first.
Right.
We're doing right now. All right.
I'll be wrapped up for trying to fuck the king's girlfriend or whatever the deal was. Oh, he stole something. That's why they killed him.
Yeah, I think the newer, the Brendan Fraser version was the one where it's like, it was the king's...
Well, it was the king. It was the pharaoh's like lead concubine or whatever. So the idea was supposed to be like, well, he shouldn't really care, but he does because he's an asshole. Like, he's already got a queen. He should be satisfied with that, but that wasn't,
would you say
that wasn't how it worked back then. I mean, no.
Exactly.
I mean, I'd like to get one first before I even worry about somebody else sleeping with them. Presumably that's already happening.
But you have to have a wife before you can have a concubine. So that's like a whole step down the list. I feel like that's the whole reason to get a wife.
This already sounds unpleasant.
That's like the whole reason so that you can then get a concubine.
The whole reason to get married, so you can cheat on your spouse. Great. Flawless logic.
No, it's because concubine is such a, it's a neat word,
Yes, I was going to say it's such an ugly word, but you're right, it's such a word.
It just rolls off the tongue. You can say, I have a concubine.
I'll conquer your bine.
Nowadays, and we don't use that word anymore, nowadays people say mistress. He has a mistress. Yeah, I've gotten better.
He's drunk again. Now she's dressed exactly like the chick at the end of Dracula. Oh my god, we're outside! Ah, fuck. Oh, we're still outside, alright. Did she bend the bars?
Now we're inside.
Did she bend the bars? Like, did she get like all Hulk strength on him?
No, I feel like Boris Karloff bent the bars.
Oh. Even still, I didn't know he had like the capability of Hulk strength.
I think he probably used his mummy magic.
Well, it's only good that he has alliteration in that sense, then. Mummy magic. She has like a reverse Thor thing going on with that helmet. The wings are going down.
It looks like a turkey.
It does kind of look like a turkey.
I'm getting a little hungry. I'm just looking at this woman.
She got very into this role all of a sudden, like very quick.
It looks like a turkey, but it has the head of a cobra.
It's a turkey cobra.
I'm the creators of Puppy Monkey Baby.
Look at what the cat did.
Oh my, he shat out an entire mummy. I like how that looked nothing like her.
Look at how shit the likeness is. We must fix it.
The idea is he couldn't resurrect the mummy because its soul is no longer in that body. It's been reincarnated, right? Unlike him, who was cursed and thus able to just reanimate his...
Well, he wasn't even killed. He was mummified alive.
Right. So his soul was still like trapped in that body, and that's why he was able to be reanimated. With her, it's a little bit more complicated. He had to track down the bitch that she was reincarnated as. Luckily for him, she happened to be in Egypt at the time, Luckily for him, she wasn't reincarnated as an Aboriginal woman in Australia or something.
Or as like a fucking amoeba.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting take on the Mummy, is if, like, Oxynamun is, like, resurrected as, like, a fucking animal. It's like a pig. Like that episode of Justice League where Wonder Woman gets turned into a pig and Batman has to turn her back into a human.
Would be really interesting is if Oxynamun got, like, reincarnated, but as a man.
Dude, if you're gonna use that body, I don't think that's the way to go. I think maybe don't burn it. I think maybe, if anything, do the opposite.
Can you imagine Oxynamun got reincarnated as a man?
That would be really interesting. That would be a really interesting take on it to see if he would still have those feelings for him/her, and how he would react to people like, you are my long lost love resurrected. What? Excuse me, mister? It's like this southern hick.
I'm not gay. Well, no, we were both women back then. We were actually lesbian.
Oh, well, that's completely different then. That's hot. Double TE. Every man ever just summed up right there.
I wish that was the plot of the Tom Cruise movie. Oh God.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly the same as she's trying to use him to resurrect somebody.
Oh, have you seen the trailer for this this horror movie that's coming out that's like Groundhog Day but with a serial killer?
Yes. What did you think of that? I thought it looked all right.
I think it's an concept. I'm interested to at least like pirate it, you know.
Mm-hmm. I had the same opinion of the film Flatliners, which I also saw a trailer for today.
Yeah, that's a remake, isn't it?
Is it?
I think it is.
Oh, okay. Of the Doctor Who episode from season 8?
No, I think there was already a movie called Flatliners, or maybe a TV thing.
That's a good fucking episode, by the way.
I've heard of that concept before. I'm pretty sure it was already a thing. Yeah, I don't know what got me on that. Oh, because I said Tom Cruise, which reminded me of Live, Die, Repeat, which reminded me of Groundhog's Day. And we're watching a horror movie. It was a weird segue.
Is she wearing a wig now?
Nah, I don't know.
Because her hair has been short the whole movie. Did the Mummy use his magic to fucking make it long?
I like that she's rebelling against him now because the soul of Oxynamun wants to remain alive rather than become a mummy.
Right. Well, she's been reincarnated and moved on with her life. She doesn't want to go back to living this living death that he's living just to be together with him. You know, she's moved on. He's stuck in the past. It's very tragic. I like that element of it. You know what else I like about this, distinct from all the other Universal monster movies, maybe with the exception of like Creature from the Black Lagoon, it doesn't have this like strictly gothic atmosphere. It still has a very creepy old-timey atmosphere, but it's got this Egyptian thing going for it that gives it this more exotic flavor. And it's almost hard to describe, you know, hard to pinpoint certain adjectives because it's so different from what we're used to. But
I think there are three movies that we're doing in this commentary that kind of break away from that gothic mold that people usually associate with Universal monsters. There's this, Invisible Man, and Creature from the Black Lagoon. They're all different. They all do something, you know, a little.
Well, the one is only because of the tone. That's another one that's also very contemporary.
Yeah. Well, it's really more of even a sci-fi film than a horror, you know.
That'll be next.
That'll be day 5.
No offense, but she's very flat-chested. I've been noticing that.
Now I shall let the bodies hit the floor.
You think he can use his mummy magic if it's bigger?
I think if he could, he would have already.
His magic has limits then, I see. Oh shit, he's already lit up. We gotta get in there.
He does not specialize in the titties.
It looks
No,
like
he
that's
might be
where
going in for a little
he's about
plastic
to
surgery.
perform some surgery. Yeah, he's going the direct approach.
What is he going to stuff in there, though? This is pre-silicone. None of the cushions are big enough.
He's stabbing her in the fucking pancreas. I must pierce her bile container.
Thank God those ancient Egyptian knives are so blunt.
Yeah, how is that going to pierce her? Like, it's going to take forever to kill her.
Did it have to be an actual stone knife like they would have had today, or couldn't he have just used, a kitchen knife?
I presume it's got to be like blessed or whatever.
Ceremonial knife.
Yeah. That's another problem with all these horror movies. If the monsters didn't move so gradually, they would be able to accomplish their goals, But they all take their time with everything, so it's just so easy for them to get fucked over.
Kalima. Yeah,
All right, so
that
one of the Egyptian gods turns on him. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I forgot about that bit. That's kind of weak. It's also kind of cool, though. I don't know.
Much like the current Middle East, he fell victim to ISIS and was
Ha! That's really cool.
struck down.
That's even better
for
than
a
like the Wolfman transformation in the 40s.
For a second, his face turned into the poster from Evil Dead 2. Did you see that?
Yeah, it did. He notices that he didn't use his mummy magic to make her tits bigger. He's like, "Fuck."
I was really hoping for...
I wanted to get something out of this at the very least.
I don't know, do you think people with tits in the 30s?
No, but I think that this movie was the inspiration for the lost skeleton of Cadavra.
Because you notice the tits aren't even the main attraction anymore. We've as a culture moved on to butts. So maybe there was something.
The ass and the thighs have become like a combination of what our society is obsessed with.
So I wonder if there was a different thing in the 30s. What a weird subject to wrap up.
No, I must say that I'm a large appreciator of the female form. A combination of the two is something I enjoy. Just to make that clear.
That was the mummy. Yeah.
That was the mummy. So we didn't. So let's kind of give our thoughts. So I actually liked it a lot better this time. I think this one stands out as much more unique than some of the other ones do. In a better way than I remember it. I think the issue is that it's not as iconic. It doesn't stand out as much as the other ones do. The mummy as a monster just doesn't capture the imagination as much as a Dracula or a Frankenstein or a Wolfman or whatever.
Yeah, and while they, I will say that while they did rip off Dracula in many respects, I think they also, again, refined it in a lot of ways, and I think that Karloff's performance is certainly worthy of note.
He's the reason to watch this, and he gets more screen time than he does in Frankenstein, and even than Lugosi does in Dracula, it feels like. He's more of the protagonist of this movie than even Lugosi is in Dracula.
Also, like Frankenstein, this movie had sort of a limited score, and I really like the music in this movie, that sort of sounding orchestral theme. It's pretty good.
And I think that this one, of the ones we've watched so far, feels the least prototypey as an early sound film. This one feels like we're settled into that at this point.
Like I said before, some fantastic makeup work also.
Fantastic makeup work, fantastic cinematography, largely good performances, a good female lead.
Probably the best up until we get to the Wolfman, and then it's
makeup wise.
Yeah,
I think the Frankenstein makeup gets better in Bride.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that when we get there, though. But yeah, certainly. But special effects wise, there's a big thing to be discussed in the next one, certainly.
Oh yes. So tomorrow we'll be talking about The Invisible Man from 1933, starring the great Claude Rains.
Indeed. So I believe that'll do it for day 4 of Commentaries of the Night, so join us tomorrow. Until then, I am Boris aka Zazubaar.
And I'm Super GM64.
And remember, you can use your mummy magic to do whatever you want, except make women's tits bigger. So, respect women!
Also, don't hypnotize black people. That's... anyway.